Welcome to the Health Revolution, the show that leads you to a life of vibrant well-being. In a world full of noisy health trends, we bring you clarity through a sea of fads. We reveal the science behind the strategies that truly work. We explore physical strength, emotional resilience, and mental mastery, the keys to an enriched life. See inspiring interviews with the champions who've conquered life's health challenges. Are you ready to unlock your potential to live with vitality and purpose? Then join the Health Revolution. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison, health and fitness expert, speaker, and a mom who understands. Let's embark on this transformative quest together. If you want to change the game, it all starts now. Revolution, and we're excited that you're joining us today. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison. No matter which way you are tuning into us, please do not forget to hit the subscribe button because we want to stay connected to you. Also, at the bottom of your screen, there is a tab for show episode notes. Be mindful of that. There's some important information about today's episode. And of course, we want to welcome all returning viewers and welcome new viewers to our show. Our show is all about having conversations that have to do with elevating the physical strength of the human body, the emotional resilience, and the mental mastery, that trifecta that allows us to have that optimal life that we all would love to continue to live, to strive for. And today, I'm excited about our topic today because we are talking about fixing the foundation, really tuning into what maybe wellness has forgotten. So we know that to have a healthy life, we're supposed to have a healthy body, but then the mindset and what our circumstances, all of that plays a role. Sometimes the space between our ears tends to be our biggest obstacle, and the perceptions we receive, both internally and externally. So we're getting a little philosophical today, but if we understand, if we get to the source of how our thought process evolves, it's going to put a lot of logical things to play. And I'm excited for you to meet our guest today because we are diving deep into this and giving a lot of thought to this. First, take a look at this. Watch this. Meet Alex Kain, a visionary who once chased success in the tech world until he realized something wasn't right. He saw how systems were scaling, but people were slipping through the cracks. Productivity was rising, but humanity was falling behind. So he paused. He questioned everything. And what came out of that reflection wasn't just a business shift, it was a personal awakening. Alex created The Philosophy, a new lens on success that centers equity, awareness, and the kind of growth that doesn't just benefit from the top, but lifts us all. This conversation will stretch your perspective and challenge the way you think about progress in your health, your purpose, and your power. Alex Kain, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adriana, for having me here.
I'm excited for us to get rolling. First of all, you wear multiple hats. Talk a little bit about the type of roles that you've had in the past that have put you on this current path you are right now.
Wow, yeah, well, I have worn lots of hats. I used to have more hair, but these days I'm focused on technology more than anything. But I have done so many wide and varied things in my life. I've been a private investigator. I've worked in a dating agency. I've driven a funeral car. I've done lots of different things. I guess my life is like a Walter Mitty adventure in some sense. But yeah, I've done lots of things because that's what we need to do to get by, right? You know, we're told we need to do whatever it takes to put food on the table. So I guess I'm no different than anyone else in doing that.
So in the different chapters you've had, obviously one door closes, another one opens. At one point in time, did you stop and think, okay, wait a minute, let me rethink the space that I'm in right now? And what impact did it have on how you believed you were supposed to move in life?
Well, I think in the more recent years, I got involved in a technology business that I started, and I was achieving success through that. And as I was going along, I was feeling a little bit empty and hollow. For me, success felt wrong where I was just trying to accumulate wealth for myself and keep my blinkers on and not worry about what was going on around me. And it was difficult when I'd come out of a lovely hotel and be surrounded by people around me who were doing it tough on the streets. And I thought, there's something wrong with this picture. I can't feel successful in that kind of environment. And I started to challenge how things are. And I wondered, what's wrong with this? Is it me or is it bigger than this? And it felt like the system was what was to blame.
Can you talk about what is the system to you? How do you define the system?
Well, I guess it's the need for us to, from birth, pretty much fend for ourselves. You know, we're lucky we have parents initially, but really, when we come into this world, we're lumbered with the idea that we have to work and we have to work to feed ourselves and have a roof over our head. And for me, it feels very much just like the animal kingdom. We haven't really evolved that much. You know, birds will spend all day foraging for food. We do the same, but we just call it work to get the money to buy the food. And so it was that kind of realization that when you come into the world through no choice of your own, you don't have a choice but to find a way to survive. And I would have thought as humans, maybe survival should already be taken care of. And where can we go to from there? But that's just not how things are.
As you were giving thought to this, did you ever feel as though it was just a grind that, okay, get up, this is what I do, go to bed, get up, this is what I do? And what was it like for you to really sit and think? Because a lot of times we're so busy. We really don't give pause for how our actions move day in and day out. Well, what was your thought process like when you sat and you paused?
Well, I think, like most people, we're running on autopilot, right? Success is modeled to us in a certain way. The flashy magazines, we see all the good things in life, that's what success means. But when I was in it, I felt it wasn't quite right. And so I needed to think, is it me or have I got it wrong? Because everyone else is doing it, so surely this must be what I'm supposed to do. But I felt it wasn't the right thing for everyone. But it's hard to challenge the whole system. I'm one person. What can I do? That was a huge challenge. But the idea was, I need to think about what this means for me, but also for humanity. Does this make sense for humanity to be living like this? That this is our life. Let's work 4, 5, 6 days a week to feed ourselves and have a roof over our head. Is that the purpose of our lives?
What does fulfillment mean to you, and how society views fulfillment?
Well, I think how society views fulfillment is that success based on accumulation and being financially free and being able to do what we want to do. That is the traditional mode. For me, fulfillment is really about our ability to attain meaning and purpose in our lives. So it's often said, a job gives you your meaning, gives you a lot of meaning and purpose in your life. But my belief is that that isn't the only currency available to us. I believe that meaning can be developed from other things like volunteering or being creative or following other pursuits that are meaningful for us. The problem is that when you've got to spend your whole life just struggling to find food and just to live, it leaves very little time for us to pursue some of those things that really give us joy. And I just think about a world that doesn't have the ability for everyone to find their joy. And that, I think, is what's lacking in the current system.
Do you notice a difference between different areas of the world? Do you notice how, or are there just overall commonalities that we all share? Are there different trends for different parts of the world in what fulfillment is and what success is?
I think there are definitely different implementations of it. In some Scandinavian countries, they take it very differently in terms of what does work look like, what does education look like. In other countries, I know There is, they have a happiness index. I can't remember the country at the moment, but it's very important in that culture for them to have happiness on the radar as one of the markers for success for the culture. And I think we just get bogged down often in the Western society that our goal is to achieve success in the traditional capitalist sense. And whilst capitalism has many positives, it breeds innovation, it drives us to strive for things. I also wonder, why aren't we striving for those things because it's good for humanity, not because it just brings us profit?
So when you started to hold space and thought for this, what was the one thing that really struck you about thinking about what all this means and the impact that maybe so many of us just don't recognize?
I think it was more so that once I started on this journey of questioning some things, it led me to start questioning everything. Like, there really were things that we accept as just immovable because that's just the way they are. They've always been here. That's the way we've always done it. But when you start questioning it, you really start to see an alternative vision of things. Like, does this make sense anymore? Just because this is how we've been doing it, is it still the right thing for us to be doing now? And one example might be, the way we try and treat inflation to bring down inflation. We do it by increasing interest rates, but that just affects mortgage holders, and it doesn't make sense that that's the target that you want to affect, to have less spending in society, because at the same time what it does is it also increases the interest and earnings that people with deposits have, who then have more free cash available to spend. For me, that doesn't make sense in trying to combat inflation, but that's how we've always done it. But I do believe these days there are more levers available to us, but very few governments are prepared to be creative on that.
And then, so as I'm thinking about you saying that, I think that there's some commonality across different areas of our lives. So when I think of, like, say, health and the state of where we are with just our livelihood, the type of conditions, chronic conditions we're facing. I think globally we're not on a really good trajectory. I just read last week that at least here in the United States, the US population has hit 45% obesity. So it's almost like when you bring up the currency of, well, this is how it's always been, it seems like there is no full stop going on with patterns that don't serve us. What's your take on that? Is there like a silence about it? Is it just too much of a disconnect? Or what's your take on that?
I think most of us probably feel these are things that are just beyond us. They're too big for us to have any impact on, because they're not, a lot of these things are not something I can just do for myself and change the world because I've decided to make a change. A lot of them are systemic and structural things that need to change. But the reason I've called the book The Philosophy is because change starts with thinking first. And the thinking is, what do we actually want from our lives? The opening line of my book is, what's the point? What's the point of life? Is the point for us to be doing what we're doing now? Is it to be scrimping and saving and working most of the week just to be able to feed ourselves? And if we're lucky, we put aside a bit of money, and then maybe once a year we might have a holiday or something. Is that what life's meant to be? And I don't think that's what it is. As I said, I think it's meant to be finding a way to have meaning and purpose for each of us. And that's a very individual thing. Some people want to be artistic and paint all day, but they don't necessarily want to paint so that they can sell it commercially. They want to paint because it gives them joy, or they want to write poetry. And imagine a health system where people were doing things that gave them joy, what that would do to the, I guess, wellness of the population where people were doing things that are aligned with who they are and what gives them joy. As long as they're not hurting anyone else, we need to find a way to do that. And I think for many of us, we can resonate with these ideas, especially if you're doing a job you don't like just because you've got to put food on the table, or because you're staying in that job for the health insurance or whatever it is. There are things that pull us away from what we want to do to try and fit what society demands we do, and it's that misalignment that I think causes a lot of us pain. It's what I refer to in the book as what we know to be true north versus magnetic north, that pulls us away either because of politics, agendas, profit, whatever it is. What we know to be true, often we can't actually execute on.
When you bring that up, I can't help but wonder the amount of stress that we're under these days. It seems as though, cumulatively speaking, it's much higher than maybe in decades past or generations past. And what's your take on the idea that maybe part of the stress that we're dealing with is because we don't have the legitimate fulfillment that that we're touching on right now? The fact that the grind is happening, and we're just kind of going through the motions, but we're not living our most optimal life. Is that contributing to stress levels, or what's your take on that?
I think definitely whenever there's not an alignment, you feel that difference, and it comes out probably physically in a lot of our bodies, as symptoms that we experience. I think we are very disconnected also in society from each other. I mean, the world that we live in today, we're on our mobile phones, we're very security conscious. Many of us, we come home from work, we drive into the garage, lock the doors, turn the security cameras on, and don't want to, we feel safe only when we're in that situation. And what that does is it means we're not connecting even with our own neighbors, because we're afraid of people who may be different than us, or who we don't feel we've got anything in common with. And yet we all share that commonality through being part of humanity.
And you bring up a good point that the level of localized connection, I guess, if you will, it's not something that is encouraged, or it's not. You're right about the patterns. What is your biggest concern with the trajectory that we're going right now?
Well, look, I mean, there's one aspect which is, as I mentioned, with our neighbors, we're fearful. But I think probably what concerns me more these days is that we're just not interested, and that for me is more of an epidemic, that we want to stick with us and ours, and it's me versus you, and that makes us a very divisive world. And it happens on a local level. We're seeing it play out on a global level as well, and I think this is not a healthy way for us to exist. I did think at the time that COVID came in that perhaps it's like we would all bandy together. It'd be us all together against this terrible foe, right? It's like a meteor heading towards the planet. But I don't know that we actually would. I think we would still go and loot and still take things for us, even though we would all be facing the same threat. It seems to be we're programmed in some way that our scarcity mindset, that prehistoric part of our brain that really plays on us, is still very much at play. And unless we reprogram ourselves, we're not going to all have that abundance mindset. We will still be faced with, what can I get for me and what can I do for myself?
Powerful thoughts. We've got a lot more to talk about, including the philosophy. But first, we're going to take a break. Stay right there. We're coming back.
So in the calm bag, it has GABA, theanine, and taurine. So theanine, which is B1, which is also in our B complex, but it also helps with the stress response levels. It also helps with the neurological transmitters in our brain. Combined with the GABA, and then you add taurine to it. Taurine is a non-essential amino acid in our body, but it's found in our heart, our brain, and our eyes. So in my personal opinion, it's very essential in our lives. But taurine has a calming effect as well. When I was battling all my AFib issues, I was taking high doses of taurine because that would help with my AFib. It would help with the palpitations I was having. And it also helped with the anxiety of having the palpitations because I knew what was going on, and so taurine helps a lot with that as well. So those three together create such a wonderful concoction that just really just calms people down.
Introducing Launchpad, the perfect partner to help you launch your dream project to the world. We know that time is of the essence, and we're here to help you make the most of it. With Launchpad, you'll get access to the most advanced digital tools and strategies to take your idea from a mere concept to a fully fledged success. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur or a seasoned pro, we have everything you need to make your mark in the world. Launchpad, your ultimate launch partner.
And what wellness has forgotten and what we need to keep our eyes on. We're spending quality time with our guest today, Alex Kain. He is an author of the book, The Philosophy. And before we get into that, Alex, I was curious. I wanted to talk to you more about you. You talk about a specific set of pillars and the relationships. You talk about 4 relationships. I want to dive into that. Can you talk to us about the 3 pillars that really speak to you and the impact that we all need to know about?
Yeah, well, I guess when I started questioning everything, I wondered, okay, well, what do we actually need to change? How do we get better outcomes for everyone? And for me, I came up with 3 pillars, which was respect, empathy, and gratitude. And I think if you had those 3 in play, if everyone learnt about those things and actually experienced and actioned those values, I think the world would be a very different place. So respect, obviously, is that feeling between people where we see each other as equals. Empathy, the understanding that we can see ourselves in someone else's shoes. And gratitude, the undoing of this feeling that many people have today where things are just taken for granted and where there is an idea that I'm just owed this. And I think if you have those things at play, then, we start seeing the world differently than the me and mine kind of mindset. And so within that respect pillar, there are 4 relationships that I see that if we act on those and we learn about those and we actually change the way that we see the world through those relationships, we'll change everything. And that first relationship is our relationship with the universe. And so by that I mean our relationship to how we see the miracle that each and every person is. And the miracle that it is that we're even here, floating around in space on this little blue marble in the vastness of space and the conditions that were right for us to even exist. The human body and how incredible and amazing that is. Why would you perpetrate a crime on a person who is effectively a miracle as well? It's bringing back that value, honor, and respect for life. And the wonder that nature itself is. For me, every time I think about it, it blows my mind. When I used to sit and watch TV with my father growing up, and we'd watch Carl Sagan on Cosmos, or we'd look at nature documentaries, David Attenborough, you couldn't help but feel wow. But for many of us, it's only a wow in that moment, and then we go back to our normal life. And I think it's really about trying to keep that at the front of your mind all the time. The second relationship is our relationship with ourselves. So once we understand how we fit within the universe, we've got to look inward, because do we really understand ourselves? Are we completely aware of our triggers, our patterns, our filters? There is no reality in the world. There is only our reality. And so our reality is shaped by the filters, and that could be our upbringing, it could be our biases, it's the way we see the world. And we're often running on autopilot because that's just the program that runs for us. And we dig in and we'll have an opinion that validates our view of the world. So if we get a good understanding of ourselves and how we think, and in turn how we act in the world, we then develop the ability to intercept some of those thoughts. And rather than just running on this autopilot program, we now take more agency and control of our thoughts and actions. The third relationship is our relationship with our inner circle. And by that, I mean our friends, family, people in our local community that we deal with. So once we understand ourselves from the last relationship, we can now go out into the world and use our new understanding of ourselves in how we deal with people around us. Because often we'll treat people who are our loved ones worse than we treat strangers sometimes. And we need to just ask ourselves, are we treating these people how they deserve to be treated, or are we running a program? Are we running it based on some other influence that's playing on our mind? And so that ability to intervene and just catch ourselves and go, hang on a minute, this isn't justified in how I'm treating this person. I just need to step back a minute. And then the final relationship is our relationship with community. And that means people who live at the end of our street who maybe we've never met, or people on the other side of the world. And so we often, as I said, talk about and only associate with people who are like us and who are our echo chambers, who make us feel comfortable and validate our own thoughts. But then we're missing out on the opportunity to grow and to be surrounded by different opinions and thoughts and to level up ourselves. And so we need to always be mindful that people everywhere we are connected to. It should never be us and them. We are all part of humanity, and we need to remember that we are all connected by that invisible thread. And it's when we fail to do that and we take that us and them approach is when we see division and we see the disparity between the haves and the have-nots continue to grow. And I think with those 4 relationships and those 3 pillars, if everyone was practicing those things, we wouldn't have many of the problems that we have in society today.
You know, I think about the 3 pillars, the respect, empathy, and gratitude. And I've got to agree with you that it doesn't look the way, if we just glance at societal habits, it's not, generally speaking, it's not where ideally where it would be. Is it a generational situation? Is it something that changes with each generation? Are there things that transcend from one generation to the next? What are your thoughts on that?
Look, I think we're influenced a lot by our major influences. So our parents, obviously, in our very early days, is where we're sponges and we're soaking up their values and their views of the world. But what if they're flawed? What if they got their views from their parents who also had that flawed view of the world? So we hope that people are gaining their understanding of values from the home, but we have no guarantees that that's happening, and there's no way to know if those are good values. And yet, this is the village. Our old village was the people we lived around and with, and yet now think about what that's transferred online now or disappeared from many people. And so I think we need to look at, okay, how do we overcome these challenges of hoping that people are gaining these values, but not having any way to ensure that they do? And that's where I talk in the book about overhauling our education system as being the solution to doing that.
I do want to dive into the book. Your book is called The Philosophy. Tell us when did you write it? How did you get the idea to put pen to paper? And what has been the one thing that's on your mind with presenting this book for readers?
Well, I can tell you that I never wanted to write a book. I do call myself the reluctant author. And the reason for that is, I'm going to tell you a secret, all right? I was never a reader of books. In fact, when I was at school, I would pay my sister 50 cents to read the books and tell me what they were about. And that's how I got through school. So I was the original outsourcer. But it was very much a case of me and books didn't really get along. And I just didn't enjoy the product. I'd much rather watch a movie than read a book. So even the idea of writing a book was just completely foreign to me. So it was probably about 2017, 2018 when I started having some ideas about the philosophy, about these ideas I wanted to challenge. And over the next few years, I was brewing them along, but they were just ideas and concepts. And I thought, well, I can talk to a lot of people, but I probably really need to document it somehow in order to be able to really share these ideas. And so the idea of a book really just came from that. I actually was traveling overseas, and the idea came to me when I was sitting on a bus for 5 hours. And as soon as I got back home from that trip, I just got out a microphone and just did a brain dump. It was really streaming consciousness, and I distilled those ideas into some sort of format, and hence the book was born.
And you mentioned that in the book you talk about overhauling the educational system. What is it about that segment of society, no matter where we're at, that is troubling, that is playing a role in what you're noticing today?
Well, look, I think the education system as it exists today is really a throwback from the Industrial Revolution, right? It's there to process as many people as possible through a system to get them job ready in order so that they can help improve the GDP of the country. And so, yes, kids go to school to learn subject matter and to prepare them for the workforce. What I see as a missed opportunity is that because we can't guarantee values being developed in the home, we can do something about it in the education system. It is a single touch point that every child globally has exposure to that we can have some kind of control over. So imagine that alongside the curriculum currently of learning subject matter, you're also learning about respect, empathy, and gratitude, but not just as inferred from reading a book, but actually taught and experienced. Because we often think that those things are addressed by the school. They'll have an excursion maybe to a museum, or one school might visit another school from a different cultural background, and we tick that off and we say, okay, that's done. They've had that inclusion exposure. But I think it needs to be more than that. It needs to be something that is taught from a very young age, probably preschool, right through all schooling life in an age-appropriate and culturally sensitive way, so that when kids come out and graduate from school, they've been exposed to these values all the way along. And I think if we do that, then school changes from being an institution for just learning subject matter into incredible incubators for nurturing great human beings.
Is there a country leading the path, or is there an area of the world that has a leg up on this? Is there any area that's embracing this philosophy to where this is being taught in schools?
Yeah, there are some schools, particularly, I think in Denmark, they teach, I think it's empathy and respect, a part of the curriculum. And so I'm not saying that it doesn't exist anywhere. I'm saying it's very hit and miss. And I'm saying that it should be a global co-curriculum that gets rolled out to all schools everywhere. In the same way that, schools all teach certain aspects and we see them as, foundational things. We just have no consistency about it. And, I would like to know that the people that I associate with as an adult have also had that exposure growing up to become good people. And then I will feel I'm able to connect more. I don't have to lock my doors and turn on the security cameras because we've all been exposed to this idea that we need to respect each other.
And I would imagine that the challenge would be that certain cultures, that it would just be seen as maybe intrusive, or how do you define respect? And, maybe a level of respect being shown might look a certain way for one culture or one area of the world versus another might perceive it differently. What's your take on that?
Well, that's why I say it needs to be done culturally sensitive to every different. Every culture has their own ways of viewing respect. I mean, you look at Japanese culture where honor is such a significant value to be practiced, whereas in some Western countries, it's not the same. It's not viewed in the same way. So we would need to do that in a culturally sensitive and age-appropriate way. But I don't think there's anyone who disagrees that learning good values is a good thing. Some might think it's a bit of an overreach for the education system to do it because they leave that up to their parents. That's where it should come from. I'm saying, well, if that's working so well, why are we having the problems that we're having? I think we need to challenge it and say, well, can we do it differently?
Well, sometimes, and to your point, sometimes when an individual is struggling and maybe the way that they handle things, maybe they're not moving through life in a way that is respectful or with empathy or with gratitude, and the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So then sometimes, how much of that is coming from home, if maybe parents were struggling with that, and then suddenly that's conditioned. So I think to your point that's a clear indicator. What is your goal for the reader? What would you want the reader to take away from your book?
I think it's more about just consider that the things that we think are fixed in life aren't necessarily. And as soon as you start having that, it opens up a whole series of thoughts that you can have about things that you felt previously were immovable and beyond our control. I look at movements like Black Lives Matter or Me Too, and I see the impact that movements can have in changing the narrative globally. And so this is more about not feeling, well, what can I do? This is saying, well, what can I do? It's really changing that shift. What can I do to help propel this? And, I don't see, putting myself or other people in government as really the key to making change happen. Government's great for implementing change, but not necessarily for bubbling up the ideas for it. And so I think it needs to come from us, the people, because then as a movement, we become a significant lobby group to government. And that's where we can put pressure to make change happen.
The book is called Philosophy, and we are going to take a break. We've got more coming. Stay put.
Welcome to Renew Laser and Skincare, where beauty meets technology. From laser hair removal and anti-aging treatments to facial sculpting, acne care, and injectables, our expert team helps you look and feel your best with customized, results-driven care. Located in Littleton, Colorado, we offer a comfortable, welcoming space and cutting-edge treatments tailored just for you. Visit renewlaserandskincare.com to book your transformation today. Renew Laser and Skincare, where confidence begins.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Fit Bites with Adriana. Today we're talking about something that can save lives, and that's recognizing the warning signs of a heart attack, especially since they can be different for men and women. Now, for both men and women, the most common sign is chest pain or discomfort. It may feel like light pressure, squeezing, or fullness in the center of the chest. This can last for a few minutes or it can come and go. However, heart attack symptoms can be more subtle, especially in women. Now, women may experience unusual signs like shortness of breath, nausea, lightheadedness, or extreme fatigue. Pain in areas like the jaw, the neck, or the back, and even indigestion can be signs of a heart attack, often mistaken for less serious conditions. Now, men may experience classic symptoms like pain radiating down the left arm, but they should also watch for signs like sweating, dizziness, and cold sweats. Roughly 805,000 heart attacks occur annually in the US alone, and out of these, 605,000 are first-time heart attacks and 200,000 occur in individuals who have already experienced one. In the US, someone has a heart attack every 40 seconds, and about 1 in 5 heart attacks are silent, meaning the damage is done without the individual realizing it. Cardiovascular disease, including heart attacks, remain the leading cause of death worldwide. If you or someone you know experiences any of these symptoms, do not wait. Get help immediately. Early treatment can prevent serious damage and save lives. Remember, heart attacks present differently in everyone, so it's important to listen to your body and take any unusual signs seriously. Stay tuned for more Fit Bites with Adriana. Our guest today, Alex Kain, he's author of the book, The Philosophy. And before the break, we were diving into the 3 pillars. You talked about the respect, empathy, and gratitude, and then the 4 relationships. The 4 relationships that we tend to have: the universe, ourselves, our inner circle, and then community. And I'm curious, I know that when you and I had talked earlier, Alex, you mentioned something that got my attention when we started to dabble into the subtopic of health and wellness. You, instead of referring to it as a health system, you called it a sick system. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, the health system as it is today is less focused on prevention and more on treatment. And again, I always get back to the beginning of my book is what's the point? The point of life is that we should find meaning and purpose and joy in life. Our health system is really, because for pharmaceutical companies and for the medical system, a lot of it is based on profitability, right? You just have to look at how HMOs operate, that sort of thing. So it's really about, are we trying to stop people from getting sick, or are we just treating the sickness? A health system would focus on health. It would, and obviously, Adriana, your program talks a lot about these ideas, and it's very much about, well, why doesn't society see things that way? Often it's because of profits again. So diagnostics that you can get to detect problems before they become problems are often limited to a certain number or every so often because we don't want to spend that much, right? And so we could save more lives if we did more prevention, but we're saying, well, it's a trade-off between our budget and saving lives. And I just wonder, in what world is that even a thing, that it's money versus life? But it just has become that magnetic north rather than the true north, that is, we should all be looking after each other.
So maybe to your point, that is a scarcity mindset that's infiltrating through in so many cultures, that instead of really treating the symptoms is what's happening, but then not getting to the bottom of why someone's health gets compromised. And I think that's pretty profound thinking. When you share your thoughts with others, and as you start to share your message, what's been the feedback you've gotten from different areas where you've talked to maybe others who are experts in different fields? What's been the take that you've gotten?
Look, as a general feedback, it's been, we agree with what you're saying. So most people agree that, we need to do better. We need to be more connected to each other. We need to start looking at our systems. And in the book, I look at our political, economy, health, education, business. And I ask those questions about it, and people go, yeah, actually, I never thought about that before. So people agree with it. What people have a hard time sometimes understanding is, how do we make the change happen? Because it just feels all too big. And a lot of the time people say, oh, well, that greed and that personal, that's just human nature. You can't change that. That's just how people are. And so I have a whole chapter in the book called The Human Operating System that just deals with that concept of, are we just merely victims of running on autopilot and we have no control or agency to change any of that? And as you see in the book, it is really about, no, that's not true. We do. We have an operating system which tells us how we operate in the world, and we have programs that we run. And the programs we have choice over. We choose which programs we want to run. But you've got to be self-aware in the beginning to even have that choice about running a different program.
And in sharing the philosophy, what is the overall theme that you want the reader to have?
Look, I want people to feel hope. And, I do pull apart a lot of existing things, but I want people to feel, no, things can change. But they will change only if we want them to, and only if we do something about them to make them change. So the first step I say is read the book, get an understanding, and let us know, if you feel similarly, and then get involved. And, a simple step everyone can do is go and talk to your neighbor. Everyone's got that power to be more connected to people around them. So it is about, yes, challenge what exists today, share those ideas with others, and then look at how we can actually take that forward in the world.
Let's see if we can bring the book back up again for our viewers to see. And I know that it's on Amazon, and so we want to go ahead and let that be available to our viewers. What year did you write the book?
It's only just been published in June this year.
Okay, so it's brand spanking new. So it's fresh off the mind and obviously hot off the presses. And
it's got that new book smell still.
Yes, new book smell. Love that. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We are coming back. Stay right there. and what wellness has forgotten, and looking at things from a philosophical lens, how we bridge the gap with fulfillment and success in our lives, and what we can do to connect with others, but then grow that thought process and beyond. Alex Kain is our guest today. And Alex, where can we find you in the virtual space?
Well, you will find us on the website, thephilosophy.net. There's information there about the book, and you can find out where to purchase it on Amazon and other places. And on that website as well, there is a community platform. So if people want to get involved and join in the discussions on some of these topics, you can join there and share ideas with other like-minded people. The other place you can find me is on LinkedIn. I've done a fair few posts on there about bits of the philosophy, so it's a good place to learn.
Now, what do you have coming up for the remainder of this calendar year and beyond?
Well, I'm having lots of discussions and talking to lots of people about the philosophy. My plan is next year to start doing more public talking about it. I've been talking to educators, talking to politicians, and we're looking at ways to actually roll this out in a deeper way. For me, the feedback's been great. Getting people joining in the discussion has been a fantastic thing as well. And the plan is that we'll take this further. This is really just the beginning.
And one last question for you. What type of legacy do you wish to leave in the world?
You know, would I love to see the philosophy get up? Absolutely, I would. It is a multi-generational thing. It's not an overnight fix. So, maybe long after I'm gone, it takes effect. My legacy is to really see the world become a much better place for everyone.
Alex Kain, it's been amazing having you on there. I love the deep dive conversations where we give additional thought and really hold space for the things that we need to start thinking about. And thank you so much for your time, energy, and your input. Thank you for being here.
And thanks, Adriana, so much for having me, and I've really enjoyed this chat.
Absolutely. And we want to go ahead and give a quick shout out to our sponsors. Without their support, we would miss it. But we want to give thanks to Biomed Mobile IV, Dapper No Code, the Launchpad, Renew Laser and Skincare, and then also Synergize Fitness. And for our viewers, we are on the web. So our website is thehealthrevolutiontv.com. There you can sign up for our newsletter. You can certainly email us with any show episode ideas you'd love for us to carry or us to cover. Upper corner of your screen, you will find our QR code. And then please don't forget, you can find us every Tuesday and Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern on the Arion TV channel, on E360 TV, and the ever-expanding hubs wherever you find us. That is all the time that we have for today. Until next time, take care of yourselves. We will see you soon.